Hey, welcome back, everybody, and we're coming near the end of our quad 4 build, and as with all motor builds, there are shenanigans going on, and I want to show you what's going on here. If you remember one of the past episodes, we talked about putting a baffle in the oil pan, and that's exactly what we did. Okay, so I just had the machine shop weld a piece of it's about 80-90 thousandths thick aluminum. Had them welded across there, and then you can see this is some machinist die that I put on there, because where the dipstick comes down in, it wasn't there wasn't enough room, so I had to notch that out. And to do that, we used a carbide bit like that, and a cordless drill, and then we finished it off smoothing it with a half round file, an old traditional half round file, just to get it nice and smooth. And we cleaned that all out, but there is the bluing there, and we're not worried about that because that will wash right off with brake clean, so that's not an issue at all. Where the shenanigans comes in is I had two of these oil pans, and they're from different years, and I thought, well, if I'm making one trip to the machine shop, I'm going to just go ahead and get both pans, get a baffle put in both of the pans. So that's what I did. So then we came back and we started looking at the pans, and there's a little bit of difference to them. You notice with this one here, what this looks like here, it's got a little dent there, factory dent, and then it's smooth here. And on the other side down here is where the oil drain plug would be. And then on the other pan, and I have it coated with machinist dye because I was trying to figure out something I'll explain later. We see we have the smooth side here and a little dent. And then on this side we have a sensor for the oil level, which we don't use, but that's just broken off. We're going to clean that up a little bit. But I originally wanted to use this pan, and for whatever reason, I just wanted to use this one. And I was going to take this out and put a plug in here, and a regular pipe plug, and be done with that. And whenever I tried it on the motor, we had an issue. It was making contact. Where it was making contact is right here. Whoops, back it up a little bit. Right here. And with this pan, it does not make contact there. But with the other pan, it does make contact here. So I was digging around, and I found some old parts, and what I found is this. And this is another one of these. Let me turn it around here, get it on the motor where it would be oriented. Now this is another one of these brackets that holds the pickup tube assembly. Keeps it from vibrating. But let me grab my other pickup tube here. I'm trying to reach, and here we go. And there we go. Okay, so it turns out, depends on what year. Some pickup tubes have one bolt, some have two bolts. I don't know what that dent is all about. That was there whenever I got it. That's nothing I did, but I'm not going to try and pry it out. I'm afraid I would make like a lip or something on there. So it worked fine before. We're going to leave it there, so we're not worried about that. But anyway, so if we set this down on here and take a look at this, we can see very clearly the reason why this one hits is because this sticks out further than this one. The reason why this one is recessed is because this goes with that pan that has the sensor. Gives enough room for the sensor. Now I had a couple of different ideas. One was because I didn't want to have to switch this and the pickup tube, because I already have the sealant on this, and once you put a motor together, you really don't want to start taking things apart. But I would have if I had to, but I decided to switch the oil pans instead. And the reason I did that is, of course, this one fits that pan and this one fits that pan. And you can see how close that is, the way that sets in there. And the reason why I didn't want to cut the other one is because then I would have to use this one for the other pan. Now, why is that an issue? The reason that's an issue is whenever we put this down in here, it would sit in here like this, and there's a gap here. And my thinking is, of course, they machined that down a little bit. They stamped this out. I guess it's stamped, that's a piece of stamped steel. But they stamped this out in a shape that would fit the other pan. And what I'm afraid of, by having this in there, is in this pan, is it leaves this gap right here. Because what I'm thinking is this bracket also acts as a wave break for the oil. So by putting this one in this pan, you could actually have a lot of oil rushing this way. Now we do have our baffle, but we're trying to control that oil as much as we can. So rather than modifying this one and using the other pan like I wanted to, we're gonna use this pan, which I finished modifying. I just have to clean that up a little bit, and then we're gonna put it on. So this should fit up fairly close to the inside of the pan, so that'll act as a wave break for the oil as it moves, as the car goes into and out of the corner. Should help keep the oil from sloshing around a bit. There's still enough room for it to get by underneath, and a little bit of room around the sides. That's not a problem. But I wanted to give the motor every chance it could to keep from starving for oil. So you can see, if I line up the bolts, you can see right about there, you can see how it's not much, just a little bit, but every little bit counts. That's why we radius the oil holes, the return oil holes. We radius those in the block, and we also radius those in the head. That's why we want to try and get the oil down into the pan, and then after we get it into a pan, we want to control it. So whenever I notch this out, what I did is I put the machinist die on there, and we set the oil pan on the motor. And of course this oil pan fit because that bracket doesn't bump into it. And then I took the oil pickup tube and put it in, and then slid the dipstick in, and you just kind of move it around a little bit, spin it around, move it around, and it leaves a little bit of a mark on here. It'll leave a little bit of a mark, and then that's how I knew how far back to radius this. And I went a little bit further, just further back than I probably needed to, just to make sure that that we could get the dipstick in and out. Worst thing to do is just clearance this just enough, and then you're trying to check the oil and it keeps bumping into this, or worse yet, it drags on it, and then you get a inaccurate reading as far as your oil level. So anyway, that's what's going on. So the next episode, we're going to be putting the oil pan on, and I want you to tune in for that one, because there's a special way we're going to do this. It's going to be very interesting. It's a very budget-oriented way, let me put it that way. So I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Like and subscribe.